Today I got the most bogus fact check I've ever seen in my entire freaking life of existing. Okay, and these are like numerous, and they keep getting more ridiculous as time goes on, and more bold, and more well, they're the biggest lies I've ever seen in my life. But here's an example. All right, so I made this innocent post on Facebook or Twitter that says, to all the kids that walked out of school to protest guns, these are the shoes of Jews that gave up their firearms to Hitler. They were led into gas chambers, murdered and buried in mass graves. Pick up a history book and you'll realize what happens when you give up freedoms and why we have them. Okay, obviously this is true, right? Well, PolitiFact fact-checked it and said it was false. Said it was partly false. And the reason why it was partly false, apparently, is because no, this is what they have to say, no, gun control regulation in Nazi Germany did not help advance the Holocaust. What? That is the most bullshit I've ever heard in a single sentence. That is utterly untrue. But they're saying what we're saying is untrue. What we said was correct. What they're saying is untrue. What the fuck is this? You really telling me that the Jews being completely defenseless against the Nazis didn't hurt them in the slightest? Jesus Christ. That is the most bullshit I have ever fucking heard. Honestly, I think if the Jews were armed, the Nazis wouldn't have made it this far as they ended up making it. I think they would have fucking been very afraid of the Jews, in fact. They may have known it was a death sentence and not even tried it. But we'll never know because they were disarmed by government for the safety of the people, which ended up killing them all. There's a reason why we don't give up our rights. They keep us safe. As you can see, them taking away our right to freedom of speech is going to affect our outcome of being able to keep our Second Amendment. So they're not only gunning for the First Amendment right now, they're gunning for the Second Amendment. This is a very important video because it shows you how these Nazi fucks are trying to go after both in one swoop. And it's all in the guise of internet safety and protecting the people. The government doesn't care about your safety. All it cares about is taking your freedom and your money and your sanity and your free thoughts, because they want to control everything you think with propaganda. They want to take away your very soul. Fuck the government. And I'm proving that in this video. They've already taken them. This form of censorship, this fact checking is only going to get worse. Soon it's going to be illegal to fucking have an opinion different than what the government finds acceptable. Because they're going to say that you're being a terrorist or an extremist. We already see that bullshit happening right now. And what these bullshitters always say is, well, you know, this isn't really censorship. Okay, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Putting a warning label on something is a form of censorship. Imagine we're at a grocery store where every individual that has an opinion is offering a product, right? And their product has warning labels all over them. What do you think is going to be bought more often? The product stating that this product is dangerous, or the product that says that it's FDA approved and government approved? You got to be fucking joking me with this. This is a form of censorship. They also shadow ban people that say the government does distasteful things. They also straight out ban people that say government does distasteful things. How is putting warning labels on true content, shadow banning people who say things that you dislike, and, just straight up banning them off the platform for saying things you dislike? How is that not censorship? It is censorship, and it comes straight from the government, which is absolutely unconstitutional. They literally lit the fucking First Amendment on fire and are celebrating it on the internet, and then nobody gives a fuck besides me, it feels like. They had a very short list of fucking rules to follow, and they broke them all. And there hasn't been a punishment for them. In fact, they're winning. You won't believe the lengths they've gone to censor us. And not just, like, big YouTubers. I used to be a big YouTuber until they censored me. Now I'm like a nobody. But now they're going to do that to everybody that calls out the government on their horse shit. I don't think you even understand or could fathom how deep this rabbit hole goes. But this video will show you it. This video will show you the way. Just save it in your favorites and get ready, because this shit is going to be a doozy.
Americans have free speech in this country. We also have the ability to engage without the government officially demanding us to silence ourselves. Did he forget about that rule? It looks like he did. You go over to his Wikipedia, you'll see this is the guy, Rob Flaherty, Deputy Assistant to the President and the Director of Digital Strategy at the White House. Also got a long history. Creative Director at Priorities USA, Digital Director. We saw that clip of him back in 2019-ish when he was Digital Director for Beto for America. Also Digital Director for Biden up until 2020, became the Digital Director for the transition team, and then worked his way over as the Director of Digital Strategy for the White House, starting in January 2021, present up until the current year. And so we're going to go through the first tweet, keeping in mind that's who is sending the emails. Let's learn more about what happened. The Attorney General files start with Attorney General Andrew Bailey, state of Missouri. He says, "When I took office, I swore I would protect the Constitution. Here's why. We now have hard evidence that President Biden and his administration colluded with social media companies to censor differing viewpoints and to silence misinformation, which they later deemed to be true." White House, who.eop.gov. Executive Office of the President. Email from Clark Humphrey on 1/23/2021, right after Biden takes office. "Hey folks, I wanted to flag below the tweet, and I'm wondering if we can get moving on the process for having it removed ASAP." From the White House, trying to take out Kennedy. Robert Kennedy Jr. If we can keep an eye out for tweets that fall in this same genre, that would be great. Thanks, Clark. That is the government trying to censor the free speech of a private citizen. Get moving on the process for having it removed from the internet. A direct email from the White House. Here, the Biden White House directs Facebook to shut down a conservative named Tomi Lahren, as well as Tucker Carlson. Here's this email. Confidential email, 4/14/2021, Biden's in charge. From Facebook to Rob Flaherty, the guy we just talked about. Guess where he's at? The Executive Office of the Presidency. Also copying somebody else at the Executive Office of the Presidency. Subject is regarding Tucker. First email came in from Robert Flaherty. That was on April 14, 2021. He's the director of Joe Biden's digital strategy. He sent this letter in to somebody at Facebook. He says, okay, hey, so-and-so. You know, since we've been on the phone, the top post about vaccines today is Tucker Carlson saying that they don't work. Yesterday was Tomi Lahren, spelled wrong, very rude, disrespectful, saying that she's not going to take one. This is exactly why I want to know what, quote, reduction actually looks like. If reduction means pumping our most vaccine hesitant audience with Tucker Carlson saying it doesn't work, then I'm not sure it's reduction. Okay? This is how our government, this is outrageous. This is how our government is talking to private media companies. This is from Rob Flaherty, the director of digital strategy at the White House. He knows he's at the White House. He knows that he has unlimited power of the federal government and the president, who doesn't even know where he is, behind him. And here's how he jokes. You can fill in the gaps of this conversation. Evidently, he said, we've been on the phone, right? We've been talking all the time. I'm asking you, why are you not doing anything to reduce our vaccine misinformation on your platform called Facebook? Why are you not getting rid of it? They say, we are getting rid of it, sir. We're sorry. Please don't come after us and make Mark Zuckerberg come into Congress again. He's going to fire me if he has to do that. So we are reducing this. We're limiting the spread. We're adjusting the knobs of the algorithm. We're doing whatever. And he says, literally, he's mocking them in this email. It's so disdainful. He has no respect for them at all. They don't work for the White House. It's Facebook. There's supposed to be a hard line here between this two stuff. But Rob doesn't care. Somebody responded, thanks. I saw the same thing when we hung up. Running this down now, right? So Facebook's like, please don't murder us, federal government. Another example. Bailey releases this one. Here's an example of big tech towing the line for Biden. Another email from somebody. Now this one's at Google. It's not just Twitter. It's all of them. This one was Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, from this person to Rob Flaherty at the White House regarding YouTube. Oh, they're doing it to us on YouTube. Yeah, we had our whole channel demonetized. I wonder who sent that email. We've had many manual strikes. I wonder who sent those emails. 9 months of demonetized here. Because of what? It's watched on YouTube. So he sends a letter about something on YouTube. Rob now, right? Rob is just this little digital hall monitor. He's just sending emails all day. Can you please take this one down? It scares me. It hurts my feelings. We use machine learning, writes YouTube back, to reduce recommendations of this type of content, including harmful misinfo, which is why I ask you so badly to share this content, share the shorts, share the segments with friends and family, invite them to come over here, because we get suppressed and buried under all of the other content. And they tell us that. Will say, this is unbelievable. I will say, this is from the White House digital director, writing to Facebook. Facebook is the company. I'm mostly interested in what effects the interventions and products you've tested have had on increasing vaccine interest within hesitant communities. So all of you anti-vaxxers, you had the White House, right? The federal government putting pressure on Facebook to turn your hesitation and your hesitant community into vaccine interests. Okay, the White House and the government algorithmically plotting to create products to make you more interested in this thing. And while the product safari has been interesting, so condescending, right? You've been showing us this product and this product and this product. At the end of the day, I care mostly about what actions and changes you're making to ensure you're not making our country's vaccine hesitancy problem worse. I want you to ensure you're not making our country's vaccine hesitancy problem worse. I definitely have what I believe to be a non-comprehensive list of products you're building, but I still don't have a good empirical answer on how effective you've been at reducing the spread of the vaccine, skeptical content, and misinformation to vaccine fence setters in the now folded lockdown. If blank can speak on those things, great. Blank hasn't been able to, but I'm sure someone there can. It's not his company. He's the digital director at the White House. This guy doesn't work for him. This is Facebook. He says, in the electoral context, you've tested and deployed in the electoral, okay, now elections now. He's pissed about COVID, and so now he's going to bash this guy on elections. In the electoral context, you tested and deployed an algorithmic shift that promoted quality news and information about the election. This was reported in the New York Times and also readily apparent to anyone with cursory social listening tools. You only did this, however, after an election that you helped increase skepticism in and an insurrection, which was plotted in large part on your platform. And then you turned it back off. I want some assurances based in data that you are not doing the same thing again here. I don't even, this person is one of the most, This is one of the most egregious emails that we have ever seen, even in the Twitter files. It's a direct government email from Rob Flaherty, who self-identifies as the digital director for the White House, from a government email being released from an attorney general where he is literally scolding a private company. You do what I ask you to do. Change the election algorithms. Change it and don't change it back. And I want some assurances based in data that you're not changing it back again. And he's still at the White House, right? Rob Flaherty's still at the White House. Has Congress demanded anything, done anything about this? This was posted on January 6th. Here is evidence that the scheme started at the highest, and I mean the highest levels of the White House. Rob Flaherty, again, same guy, coming from a government email account over to a bunch of people at Google. Google 1, Google 2, Google 3, Google 4, Google 5, Google 6, Google 7. Copied more people from the government, the White House Executive Office of the Presidency. We remain concerned that YouTube is, quote, funneling people into hesitance and intensifying people's hesitancy. Right? We don't like how people are thinking and how they're acting and the things that they're doing. So we need you to change them and how they feel by adjusting the algorithms and stop funneling people into hesitance, funnel them into compliance. We certainly recognize that removing content that is unfavorable to the cause of increasing vaccine adoption is not realistic or even a good solution. But we want to be sure that we have a handle on vaccine hesitancy generally, and we're working towards making the problem better. This is a concern that is shared at the highest, he says, and I mean highest, okay, in parentheses. This dude is one of the most rotten people that we've seen in this entire email drop saga. He's talking about the president. Okay, this is a concern that is shared at the highest, and I mean highest levels of the White House. So we'd like to continue a good faith dialogue about what is going on under the hood here. I'm the on hook for reporting out. We'd like to continue a good faith dialogue. And if you don't do what we want you to do, guess who's on notice about this? The president, highest level at the White House. And you can understand that if we don't get this worked out, like if you don't show me what's going on under the hood there, as he says in his email, open up your company, right? This is that communist Gestapo coming into your house and saying, why don't you show me this and show me that and give me this and give me that. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. That's what he's doing. Hey, Google, open your hood. Tell me what you're doing to censor our enemies. And if you can't possibly do this, guess what? Our good faith dialogue, it may not turn into good faith anymore. Check out. And get your survival gear. All right, my friends. Now, it's time to turn our attention to part 2. Carrying on with Rob Flaherty and some of the most egregious censorship in our country that we have seen. Attorney General Bailey continues, he says, our office now has even more hard evidence that President Biden and his administration has been working with social media to suppress speech. Rob Flaherty sent this one out, May 6, 2021. Rob Flaherty, again from the government, sends this email to Facebook. He says, Dear Facebook, so I guess I have 2 questions for you here. 1, this person references 3 widest reach posts. I believe this is one. He says, for one, this one is still up. It's gotten 365,000 shares with 4 comments. We've talked about this in a different context, but how does something like that happen? The top post, the one from Wisconsin, has 2.1 million comments. Am I looking at one instance of sharing too? What is your assessment of what's going on here? It says, it won't come as a shock to you that we're particularly interested in your demotion efforts, which I don't think we have a good handle on. And based on the below, it doesn't seem like you do either. Not to sound like a broken record, but how much content is being demoted? And how effective are you at mitigating reach and how quickly? As I've said, I don't think our position is that you should remove vaccine hesitant stuff. However, slowing it down seems reasonable. I just can't describe what it means or how you know it's working. Also, health groups. He says, sure. But it seems more likely that anti-vax stuff is moving in groups that are not about health, but are more, mom-centric and other spaces. Strikes me as the issue here is less from single-use anti-vaccine accounts and more about people, who do other things who are also vaccine hesitant. Yeah, like the mom groups, talking about soccer class or whatever, soccer practice. And then they also talk about the jabs. Can we go after them too? Seems like your, quote, dedicated vaccine hesitancy policy isn't stopping the disinfo dozen, and they're being deemed as not dedicated. So it feels like the problem likely carries over to groups. As a last thing, he says, she's this guy. I'd be interested in seeing this 100 ranking in terms of reach from the things you aren't actively promoting in the info panel. He wants to get in there and manipulate their algorithm because he's unhappy about this. Tucker Carlson email and the video that we talked about in the first thread. Flaherty disagrees with Facebook because they didn't remove Tucker. April 14th email comes out. Rob Flaherty writes the following. Comes from the government website, government email. Rob says, after Facebook refused to remove the Tucker Carlson video, Rob Flaherty said, okay, Facebook, I guess this is a good example of your rules in practice then, and a chance to dive in on questions as they're applied. How was this not violative? The second half of the segment is raising conspiracy theories about the government hiding information. And it's not just about one manufacturer. What exactly is the rule for removal versus demoting? He's demanding. Flaherty also says, moreover, you say reduce versus demoted. What does that even mean? There's 40,000 shares on that video. Who is seeing it right now? How many? How effective is it? And we've gone a million rounds on this in other contexts, so pardon what may seem like deja vu to me. But on what basis is, quote, visit the COVID-19 Information Center for Vaccine Resources the best thing to tag a video that says the vax doesn't work? Not for nothing, but last time we did this dance, he says, it ended in an insurrection. Sent from my iPhone. Rob Flaherty. Very, very dramatic. In addition to being demanding. He doesn't run Facebook. He doesn't run Google. He doesn't run Twitter. They're not his companies. Americans have free speech in this country. We also have the ability to engage without the government officially demanding us to silence ourselves. Did he forget about that rule? It looks like he did. Flaherty tells Twitter in another email that if your product is appending misinformation to our tweets, that seems like a fundamental issue. These emails came back out on Thursday, August 11th, and then they get that misinformation. He says, you're appending misinformation to our tweets. It must have been a White House tweet, right? The White House posted something, and then there was a Birdwatch, community notes. Actually, Joe's a liar. So he sends him an email. Why did you do that to our account? Twitter responds, hey, Rob, thanks for reaching out. I believe you're referring to our Birdwatch product feature, which I think now is community notes. Here's the latest information about how it works. We'd be happy to arrange a meeting to walk you through how it works. We're collecting feedback. Well, here's how it works. This is Birdwatch. It's the community, idiots, not us. Well, your product is misrepresenting our narrative. They don't like that. To work with you on a regular basis, okay? You're now going to have a full-time liaison. We're also going to share additional data. We've got new internal analytics that we're developing that's going to help us understand COVID-related content. So Facebook is now going to basically create this dashboard, essentially, and just share all of that with the White House. This is a top priority for us, and we'll keep you updated on our progress. You also asked us about levers for reducing virality of vaccine hesitancy content. You want us to shut that up. In addition to the policies that we have already discussed and additional changes, more is going to be coming. We're removing misinfo. We focus on reducing the virality. Experts have advised us It's important for people to be able to discuss their personal experiences and concerns. We're going to remove group pages, accounts when they're disproportionately promoting this content. Okay, so even if you're, in one of those mom groups that he was talking about previously, if you're a little bit too much, anti-vax versus soccer practice talk, illegal. More on this as we proceed. All right, so the White House sends over a letter to Facebook. We need you guys to censor a lot more, or else good faith conversations go out the window. The highest level of the White House is interested in this. Things are going to become problematic. Facebook responds, no need to go there. We'll comply. We have a multi-billion-dollar company we don't want you to divest us from. Flaherty writes over to Twitter. He says, new to the thread here, but this all reads to me like you're bending over backwards to say this isn't causing confusion on public issues. If the AP deems it confusing enough to write a fact check about it and you deem it confusing enough to create an event for it, how on earth is it not confusing enough for it at least to have a label? Very upset about a doctored video of the First Lady. Remember, they were very upset about Joe Biden's tongue video as well. He's doing that thing. He says, total Calvin ball, right? You guys are just doing whatever you want over there. Flaherty demands that Facebook step up its operations to remove bad information. So he sends another email. He's angry now. May 12th, Flaherty sends this in. All right, over there at facebook.com, he says, sure. All right, they're first connected to authoritative information, but then you, as of last night, were presenting an anti-vaccine account with less than 1,000 followers alongside at level with those pinned accounts. Why was your platform putting these posts up here where they were posted? He says, look, here's the thing. You know, and I know that the universe of undecided people searching Instagram for vaccines, as compared to, say, Google, is probably low. But removing bad information from search is one of the easy, low-bar things you guys can do to make people like me think you're taking action. And if you're not getting that right in italics, it raises even more questions about the higher bar stuff. You say in your note that you remove accounts that discourage vaccination from appearing in recommendations, even though you're using primarily to give yourself wiggle room. You also said that you don't promote those accounts in search. Not sure what else there is to say. YouTube, he says, for their warts, has done pretty well at promoting authoritative info in search results. It's true. Try to find our videos. They don't show up because only the authoritative searches, show up from the news idiots at the local news, while keeping the bad stuff off of those surfaces. Pinterest doesn't even show you any results other than official information when you search for vaccines. I don't know why you guys can't figure this out. So condescending. If this were not a government official, right? Like if he didn't work for the White House, if he worked for any other business or any other company or any other person, you'd say this guy's the biggest a-hole in the bit, and you would never work with them again. I'd say, get the hell out of my office. Don't ever call me again. Don't ever contact our firm again. Don't ever even think about calling me or looking at me again. Don't even watch my show. Unsubscribe from my channel, psycho. Because of this condescension. It's not his company. He's acting like a little dictator because he wants to be. And he's probably got the full approval of the White House. Andrew Bailey says, I want to protect Missourians. Suppressing speech is insane. We're not going to allow that to happen on my watch. And we finally have part 3. Now we're going to learn more about part 3. In our efforts, writes Andrew, to protect the First Amendment, we deposed this fellow right here, Brian Scully, worked at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency called CISA. Key player in the federal government's information to suppress mis, dis, and malinformation. Let's listen to this fellow and learn more about him. He was on an interview over from this channel, which is a very interesting channel.
Welcome to the breakdown.
You can see this channel is, if we highlight it here, it tells us that we have 19.9 thousand subscribers. It is the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. This video got 221 views about 2 years ago. The explanation of this video is, amidst concerns of health disinformation in the current pandemic, scholars keep an eye on the 2020 election. In this episode, BK staff Omu interviews Brian Scully from CISA. Let's listen in to this very insightful conversation.
My name is Umu. I'm a staff fellow on the Berkman Klein Center's Assembly Disinformation Program.
Okay.
Our topic for discussion today is the upcoming November 2020 election.
Great.
The 2016 election, in so many ways, laid bare the connection between countering disinformation and protecting democratic processes.
Okay.
And I think that it's been difficult since the 2016 election to quantify the causal impact of disinformation on public conduct.
That's true, because there wasn't much causal impact of misinformation or disinformation on the election. It's just kind of something you guys invented so you could regain control of the narrative and censor all of their political opponents of the Democrats.
Confidence in democratic institutions. We know that foreign actors work to systematically influence the election, and we know that they're working to do the same this fall. My guest today is Brian Scully from the Department of Homeland Security, who will introduce himself.
Sure. Currently, I run the DHS Countering Foreign Influence Task Force, which is in the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I've been doing that for about 2 years now.
Awesome.
Great.
Right. So talk a little bit about, a little bit more in depth about what you do at DHS on CISA.
Sure. So like I said, I lead a small team. We're focused on, we call it countering foreign influence, but really what we're trying to do is build national resilience to foreign influence activities. And so for us, a lot of what we do is public education and public awareness, outreach to different communities, provide resources that folks can use to better understand both the risk and then ways to mitigate the risk. For us in particular.
So is that like a newsletter or something? Like to reach out to communities and provide information? It's like an email list or something? Like, is that what they do?
We're trying to reduce the amount that Americans engage with this information.
Oh, they're trying to reduce the amount that Americans engage. Oh, that sounds like they're trying to shut off the spigot of disinfo and misinfo. Well, where does that come from? Where does that so-called misinfo and disinfo, malinfo and whatever, where does it all come from? First of all, who quantifies it? Who gets to label it and articulate it as those things? But where does it come from? It comes from people. It comes from humanity. We all speak it and it comes out of our mouths. So that means if you want us to engage with it less, that means you have to suppress people who are saying those things. And it's not only hurting them for having their speech censored and suppressed, it's also hurting the people who want that information. The people who say, I get educated by learning new things. It's hurting both sides. That's why we don't do it in this country unless you're this guy.
And so a lot of our products and information are focused on that. We're also working specific to the election. We work a lot with state and local election officials to help them with content around the security of the election, right? So helping citizens understand, how to vote, where to vote, how absentee ballot works, things like that.
Wow, what a stellar job. So this guy's like a volunteer senior citizen at a voting center. How to vote, where to vote. It's brilliant. And if you make a joke about voting on Wednesdays, then you're a terrorist criminal who needs to be executed. What a thrilling job for this guy. How to vote, where to vote. But it's got a cool acronym though.
We do that in support of state and local election officials. And so our two main areas are really trying to help folks understand what's going on around the 2020 election and then building broader kind of long-term resilience to disinformation amongst the American people.
All right. So it's actually an interesting interview because these two people are talking in circles. They're just both petrified of a reality that doesn't really exist. But that is Brian Scully. Now let's see what this final thread from the AG files has for us. He says, Brian Scully was deposed, and here's what we've got. CISA housed in the Department of Homeland Security, and created to ward off foreign cyber attacks, has now been weaponized to suppress domestic speech. As we just heard and just talked about, that's what they work on. This is the same group that launched the Disinformation Governance Board, with singing Nina Jankowicz. And due to the immense public backlash, they formally disbanded that group. But its work continues. Jen Easterly, the head of CISA, believes that the infrastructure in CISA doesn't mean protecting roads and bridges. It means cognitive infrastructure. That means suppressing speech. The depositions focused on Scully, leader of the mis, dis, and malinformation team, the gentleman we just heard from, started in 2018 as the Countering Foreign Influence Task Force to ward off foreign attacks. In 2021, CIFTIF changed its name, reflecting foreign threats to domestic speech. A couple of exhibits came out from yesterday's deposition here below. In this one, Twitter censored, or in their words, actioned, accounts for their civic integrity policies after CISA flagged them. Email came in from the government at cisa.dhs.gov. Please see the below reporting from Maryland. Thanks, redacted. Goes over to Twitter. Twitter responds at twitter.com. Thank you for raising this to our teams. We have actioned these accounts under our civic integrity policy. Thank you. We'll go ahead and nuke those accounts. In another email, we see CISA offering to help major social media companies connect with local election offices from Facebook to CISA, copying government 1, government 2, Facebook 1, government 3, government 4, government 5, Facebook 2, Facebook 3. Subject account security. Facebook says, "Hello, Team CISA. Hope you are all well. In our conversation a few weeks ago, you mentioned that your team could potentially help connect us with local election offices. Is this something you're willing to help us with? Additionally, we can provide training for them on account security best practices if you think that could be helpful too. Anything else we can do in the meantime, let us know." Facebook now wants to get ultra involved and intertwined with all of the election officials so that they can get rid of all the election misinformation that they don't like. And Bailey says, to defend the First Amendment, it's imperative that we stand against the federal government weaponizing its resources. Missouri will continue to lead the charge. He says this is just the tip of the iceberg. We look forward to releasing more documents as well as the highlights of the Scully deposition in the days to come.